Okay, so let's talk about your first code along, which is going to be taking the querying lecture from Harvard and breaking it into parts. So this will be part one. We're actually not going to do any SQL for this one. We will next week. Okay, so you can see as I've been highlighting through the videos that, the sequential nature. So this one has been submitted. So now this one is up and open to you. So let's go ahead and go in. So I'm recording this short video to give you just an overview or a little more detail than I did in the attendance. So one thing is you have this markdown file, and when you click on that, it'll bring you to a link that is actually inside of our course repo, okay? And by the way, if you ever needed to, if for some reason you couldn't get to Canvas but you wanted to work on something, you could come to 28 and under 28 look at the repositories or repos and you would find files. And this is where I will put instruction file, database files that you'll need. But in this case, the link in Canvas gives you direct access to that file. So I just wanted you to know that in case it ever comes up. That is true. All right, so this is CS50's Querying Part 1. And I've given you a link to the video. So in this case, I recommend, because if you click on this, it'll just take you away from this page, and you're going to want to have this page available to you to see how I want you to move through the content. So right click, open in a new tab. So I already have it open here. Okay. And I'm actually at the place you would be ending. So this is Carter Swanky. Swanky? Yeah. Anyway, he's awesome. I really enjoy his style. I hope you do as well. So the other thing you're going to want to have open, and again, most of you, I haven't actually, the semester hasn't started yet, so I don't know how many, but I suspect most of you will be using CodeSpace. So you want to have that open as well. So you're going to go into your private repo, go to code. And here it may default to local, but actually probably it'll default to CodeSpace once you've set it up. Remember, no changes means that what I have here on GitHub and what is on my CodeSpace are the same. But of course, what we're doing in this work is you're going to be coding. So it'll not be the same until you do the Git workflow. Okay? So this takes just a second to load up. Now I do have, and I've covered this, but just as a review, I do have my color, going to themes. I have my color theme set lighter just so you can see, in this case, the difference maybe between this and a local setup. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and it comes up to the README file in the private repo. And at this point, it defaults to setting up my terminal, right? Even though I know this is true, I'm going to go ahead and do git status. And yep, there's nothing to commit. There's no changes. I can also see that by looking over here at source control. Okay, so let's go back to so you can see that having several things open here is what you need. Now this is where if you have more than one monitor you can use, this will definitely be helpful. Maybe having this in a tab somewhere. Or in another device or in another screen. Like in my setup I'm setting in front of right now, I have a laptop screen with an external monitor. But I know not everybody has that set up, but that has worked well for my particular workflow, and I can imagine based on what I'm having you do, it might work for yours. So just know, I'm not saying you have to, it just helps. Okay, so here we are. We have CodeSpace open. We are doing the first code along. And so in this first one, you have a setup step. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to recommend, because this is a review of what you've already done in the development setup. So this is a good check to see how well you translated those concepts. And don't worry if you didn't. I'm actually going to say if you want to try this, which I recommend, go ahead and do this by pausing, and then you can come back, because what I will do is go ahead and walk through it. Okay, but give it a try, right? So creating create a new folder in that folder, and I give you the name of the folder, and do follow my specifications in the folder. Create a new file. Again, follow my specifications. You will take notes in here using Markdown. Learn more about that in this assignment. Open that in a new tab, right? Because again, if I click in here, it'll take me away. And then before you start taking notes, do an H1, which is a single pound sign with this content, and then commit. Okay? All right, pause here if you don't want to, or if you want to try it. Otherwise, I'll do it in my code space. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. And now we created a folder last time. So if I want to create a folder, I want to make sure I'm in the right location. And how do I know this? In this case, I have clicked into here, and one of the things I can do is just click new folder, and I can see that it's going to put it at the same level as get help, so that makes sense, and it's going to be querying all lowercase. Cool. So now in querying, and this is a very common thing, this readme.md file is a very common file that's used. And this syntax is also very common. I know I emphasize lowercase, no spaces, and this is no spaces, but it's uppercase on the first part of the name because that's just kind of standard the way it's done. So now we're going to create a file in this folder. Remember, having this selected, it tells me when I hit file, then it's going to readme.md. Okay, cool. So let's see. I think the other thing I wanted in this case is I wanted a heading. So let me go back and grab, so I can have this open if I want, which is my cheat sheet. Yeah, and I wanted a heading 1. Now, if you're taking HTML, you remember the difference between markdown and markup. So if you were doing markup, you would do an H1, but in this case, you're using markdown. So make sure you use the syntax I want you to. Okay. So before taking notes, then I'm going to grab this, week 1, querying part 1. I'm going to come over to my code space after that. Then I now have my first, well, actually I had it when I put the pound sign in there, and I can see now I have this, right? So in this case, now if I do, and I could use my up arrow. Great, okay. And I can see I do have untracked files in that subdirectory. And by the way, this is another good thing to know how to do, is that you can view, right now I can preview what this README file will look like, because when you're looking at README files, they can be rendered as kind of a web page concept, or they can just show you the actual syntax or the markdown. So right here, this is the raw syntax. But if I come over here and I hit open preview, then this is going to give me when somebody would look at my markdown file. So in this case, it would be me. That's the heading that you would want. So you can see how that markup creates that. So I just want you to know how to do that. So now I'm going to clear my screen. I'm going to do git add star. Now I'm in the root, so it's going to actually look for whatever I have available, meaning I have some untracked files based on what I saw with my git status. So now I've gone from untracked to indexed added. So git commit -m, right? And now in this case, I do specify your commit message. So setup complete. Now I'm just going to, you don't have to, you can actually, and when you paste, I just did, you have to configure these. Let's see, allow it. I think that should be okay. Let's see if I've done it. If it does allow it. Oh yeah, so up here in the address bar, I have to hit allow, and then once I've done that, it pasted it in twice. Okay, so in this case, there's my commit message. So and that's a fairly common thing you may want to do at times, is that. So just know that that will come up. So now what we've done is we've committed our code, right? But we haven't pushed it. So right now our git status would say that, hey, your branch is ahead. So right now our branch of main now is one commit ahead of our origin, meaning what's on GitHub, which is totally okay. Okay, you can wait until you're all the way through the work in order to do the git push, but you're also welcome to do the git push now. So it's really kind of based on your comfort level, and also just learning and understanding that you don't have to do a git push until the end, but if you want to, that's totally fine. As long as you've committed it here, even if something happened with your code space, it will still be there. Okay? All right, so I'm not going to actually do the rest with you, but I will talk about it. So in this case, I actually break this down from the beginning to, you'll go all the way to 12:25. Looks like I didn't have the last seconds on there, but no worries. Watch and take notes that you feel will help you better understand the material. Now, again, I'm not going to read through it, but then, so watch from the beginning to 4:13 and then write some content. Now, this is where using this markdown concept, right, just writing text is not always great because it doesn't help you organize the content that you're looking at, right? So you might add like a item here, right? So you could do that. There's different ways. I don't actually specify to you how these notes need to be done, but I do like to see you using ordered, unordered list. Those are helpful. You can also use a subheading here, right? So you could use a subheading that might be the commit message that you're going to do. Now, you still will use this commit message, right? But just some kind of way you're organizing this. And this is where, as we go forward, I'll be more specific about this. But right now, what I'm really just seeing is, can you follow along, take notes, and use what you've seen on the cheat sheet to say, hey, this makes sense to me, because really you're taking notes for yourself and for me, of course, to see, to show me that you walk through all that content. Okay, so back here, then you will continue and you'll have another one, terms and other. Then you'll continue, you'll actually have two that you do here. And at that point, then you'll have what is SQL, right? So stop. And in this case, I'm giving you stop here, and then this would be another way you could organize the content, right? Because I don't make you do a commit in there, but I give you suggestions. And then here at 8:44, again, questions are great because questions are like you want to know what that means. And now you'd be welcome to go use, ChatGPT or Google or whatever your favorite generative AI to answer the questions that you may have, or you can leave them in here. And if I pick up on them, I'll make sure to reply. But if I don't, ask me, right? Okay, so then at 2025, you will then stop and do your last commit. Again, your git add, your git commit. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say, kind of simulate the idea that you've reached all the way to the end. Okay, so maybe I did some, right, headings here, and I did some different content, right? And I'm going to SQL, right? And then I could put regular content here. And I could also do, right, the idea of here. And if you want to see what this looks like, you can see here. We'll use much more of this going forward, right? But again, I just wanted you to have the idea. But for now, right, and by the way, notice right now that's modified, and that's because I put some extra enters. But if I go back here and I put it back at that state, that at this point, I believe I haven't added anything else. And actually, I could almost take a little deep dive off of here and show you how to look at modified files, but I think I'll save that for later, right? So if I did get status, it actually is going to show there's a modification on, actually, it wouldn't hurt to do it now. I actually could show here the difference if I looked at this and if it showed me the working. So it shows me that plus that, but I already had that there. It must have been some enter. I don't think I did anything else, and that's just a working directory. Now I almost don't want to show you that because I don't want to get too far off in the weeds. Now that I got rid of that, my M is back, meaning this was the original, this is the content when I did my workflow. Okay, again, I know that's a little confusing and it wasn't my intention, but you always are learning new things. Just the nature of it. So if I did a get status now, right? Before I sought a modification, but because I put that file back in its original content status, even though it's version control, it's like, hey, it's equal to whatever you had before, so you're good to go. So now I do that git push. Okay, so now I'm like simulating the idea that I'm done. And again, stop my code space because that time is ticking through. And you'll probably see me in the next couple weeks remind you about the links that I talked about in the setup to actually check how much time you're using here. Okay, so while that stops, I'm going to go back over to here. And now I need to get my URL, right? So just like we did in the development, set up the development environment, you're going to do here, but you're going to actually do one step different. So let's go back here. Okay, we're done with that. So I'm going to go CIT or GitHub, CIT28. I'm going to go to my repo, right? So by the way, when you come into here, when you hit repos, you should actually, this should only be a couple of files at this point because I don't have this class creating public repos. You should only see files and your private repo. So let's come into here. And then remember I talked about commits. So now here's the difference. Before, if I hit commit here, it's going to show all the commits that's been done. But there's one step difference in what I want you to do here is I want you to go into the querying folder. And in the query folder, give me the history. And so what this does is it shows me and it shows you what commits you had for this folder for this work. And remember, for all this work, you would end up having 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the way I will grade it is I will go in there and look, did you include all the content? Did you do all the commits? And you can see below here how I actually look at this, how I grade this work. Okay, so back over here. So now I should have 4 of these when you're done, but I get this URL, copy this URL, because again, it was like what you had in the dev setup. In addition, it adds querying to the end. So now I come in here, I start the assignment, I hit that, I submit, okay, and then boom. Remember, the benefit of working early is that once I see this, I will go in and review it. Remember, I generally grade first thing in the morning. So if you want my review, you have to plan ahead a little bit so that if there's something you're missing, you can resubmit this. If you have missed something, I've given you feedback. As long as I see it when I wake up on January 17th in the morning, I will give you full points. Okay, but because that's actually, remember I talked about that even though this is the due date, it's at midnight. As long as it's there when I wake up the next morning, I do not consider it late until I've woken up and reviewed all the content submitted. All right, hope this helps you. From here on out, I'll assume, and probably it's a bad idea, but I'll hope that you have this, but I could also refer you back to this one that gives you more detail about the submission process, the file and folder creation. All right, talk to you later.